We are not Michigan men, but we are Pick Six podcast people here this week to break down a big game under the lights in Lincoln. Welcome in. I'm Evan with Sam, with Jimmy. We are indeed the Pick Six podcast talking Nebraska, Michigan this week. A little bit looking back at Nebraska, Northwestern last week. Big blowout victory for Scott Frost. But first, how is everybody today?
Pretty good. Seinfeld is on Netflix. Makes me happy.
You gonna dig into that, Sam?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm feeling good.
I'm a happy man.
I'm feeling good as well.
I already have.
Oh wow!
What was the first episode you watched?
I started in season 6.
Okay.
It was a Kenny Banya episode.
Yeah.
When he gives Jerry the suit, the Armani suit, and he wants a couple meals out of the deal.
That's the third episode I watched. The first one was Mom and Pop with John Voight's car.
Yeah.
Banya shows up in that one too.
That's fantastic. That's really
Season 6, 7 are probably the two best.
Yeah, and John Voight wasn't the actor.
No.
Was the dentist.
That's right.
That's
right. Periodontist. So Seinfeld's on Netflix. I'm happy. Nebraska beat Northwestern by a lot. That was good. Rising tides lift all boats. Amy Williams said this on Monday. When Nebraska football wins, everybody's happier. The whole athletic department's happier. I mean, literally all of them. Maybe Hoiberg doesn't care because he's running his own thing, but everybody else is thrilled. And so, that felt like something. And then coming into this week, it wasn't going to be, like a funeral song. Like, oh boy, here's another game. It's kind of a big game. Everybody's shoulders are up a little bit. There's a little electricity. People are watching Michigan and saying, I broke down Michigan, that kind of stuff. That's the kind of thing you want in a football program. And it's interesting that just a couple of weeks ago, I think people were really in the dumps. But then after those Oklahoma and Michigan State games, and then especially after Northwestern, now you feel like, maybe this season could be something. May not be 8-4 or 9-3, but it could be something.
Yeah, the weekend was, it had a little bit of everything, right? Like volleyball did well, baseball had a thing, basketball had the concert and their kind of exhibition show out. It just felt like, everybody it was a big recruiting weekend.
Nebraska got a guy out of it. The baseball team.
They got a big commit out of it, yeah.
The first team to get a commit out of that was baseball.
Yeah.
They're good. Will Bolt's really good at what he does, so that doesn't surprise me. But
so it was a big weekend for everybody, and we can talk a little bit about Northwestern. It's the midway point in the season, so we have some sort of mid-season awards we're going to hash out a little bit.
Yeah, good.
We're going to get into hoops. Jimmy, you've been checking out some of the practices. You were at the concert / whatever you want to call it last Friday
They called it
night.
opening night / scrimmage / G-Herbo.
Scrimmage was too long.
Okay.
You know I'm right.
Maybe, I don't know. I think
long.
the whole thing
This
was
guy can't get enough hoops.
The whole thing
He wanted
altogether
twice
was
as long.
probably too long. I don't think there's anything wrong with 2 12-minute periods. I do think that if
they were ready to be done about 5 minutes into the second period.
That's the thing. If you're gonna have something that long, you gotta up the intensity.
Well,
it was
something.
too all-star gamey for as long as it dragged.
Right.
So I agree with you on that point.
At some point, it was like playing NBA 2K whatever. I don't have the latest version of that, where it's like it's late, you're up 27, and it's like, and you're just trying to score late in the game.
You used up the turbo on the players, and you're just kind of
Wagging around.
It's
like,
great.
let's see if I can make a 3 from here.
I'm a big video game NBA guy.
Me
I
too.
like it a lot.
Me too.
We should have you guys play sometime.
I would win.
Oh, I would. Yeah, he'd win.
I would win.
Oh, okay. See, if it's football, I think I could hang with the old NFL Blitz.
Sure.
Nintendo 64.
Oh, yeah.
Those kind of games would
that.
never
Those were
fly
fun.
now.
I'm not any good at the bat. I'm okay. I always pick the Warriors or the Blazers.
Okay. All right. Well, before we get into some of the awards and some of the hoop stuff, I wanted to kind of break down this big red idea today, and it's off of something that Scott Frost said this week, which was guys see the formula now, and they've prepared well for several weeks in a row. So when you guys hear that, are we talking about an identity, that thing that we've been discussing for a while? Is that something else? I guess, how would you describe what that formula has been, and if that's something that can endure, or if that's something that's just here for a few weeks and gone?
I think Frost specifically was talking about how to approach a game, how to prepare for a game, how to apply those things that you do in practice, how to make practice transfer to a game. That's, I think, the formula that he was referring to. And I think he's probably right, because they looked great against Northwestern. They've looked better in several different areas that they needed to look better in during that game. As far as an identity, I mean, I think they still want their identity to be running the ball. They took a huge step forward toward doing that against Northwestern, but I don't know if one game makes an identity. So half yes, half no, I guess is my answer.
Aspiration, probably the word I would use. The thing on the Post-it note on the fridge, or the Post-it note at your desk where it kind of lists the things that you want to do. I wouldn't call them resolutions because I think they're halfway through it. So, like, I think,
It's like a vision board.
Yeah, vision board is a good way to put it. Like, I think there's a sense of how they want to get there. But we're talking about a program that just last week had to switch out 2 offensive linemen because they couldn't do it. They couldn't do it the way they were doing it with their current personnel. So I think a couple of things are true. One, I think Scott Frost knows this team way better than he did even last year's team. I think there's a bond and a sense with this team that he feels like he knows them a little bit. I think Scott's going to be a guy that doesn't want to. They spent a lot of time recruiting a ton of dudes early. I think they've found, maybe not for us, maybe that's not the approach that they're going to take going forward. They're going to take, I think, a nice number of freshmen, but I think they're going to be more judicious. So I think he feels like he knows this team, 1. 2, when you have a defense, you can play to so many things offensively where you feel like you have a freedom. You have a freedom to play, hide the ball and play conservatively. You have the freedom to go for it and try to get up 14-0 early. You have the freedom to kind of be in between. Maybe on one drive, you're just trying to grind out a couple of first downs and change field position. Maybe on another, you got 1st and 10 at their 48 and you're going house call. When you have a defense, it gives your offense so many different options on how to play. And I think you saw that on Saturday. First drive of the game, right? YOLO ball. Mm-hmm. And that's what that kind of was. That wasn't a...
They were fortunate.
That was a YOLO ball. Second, third drives of the game, run it down their throat, which they did. They ran it down their throat. So, like, there's a nice balance there. And I think when you have a defense like Nebraska's, you feel almost like you can do almost anything on offense. And then the special teams, we don't know. They didn't get tested that way. Michigan will test them. Special teams remains the biggest concern for me going forward.
Yeah, they were. The special teams were boring on Saturday.
Yeah, they didn't have to do much.
No, they punted once. They had
You're calling an 84-yard punt boring?
Yeah, I mean, in the scheme of the game,
crowd was into that thing.
That was the highlight.
Cam Taylor was like,
I don't
waving
know what
that thing along.
The Northwestern returner was doing there. That was a huge. I don't even know what he was trying to do. They kind of quit, incidentally. Fitzgerald's got something on his hands there because the way that Northwestern played in that fourth quarter against Nebraska's backups, and Nebraska's backups are good, but they're not better than Northwestern starters.
Right.
That was a quitting. That returner didn't even try. So I feel like Nebraska, once they put that extra one on the board with Betts, I think Northwestern they took off the headphones, the microphone, they took the wallet and the key, the badge. We're done. We're done playing. They just got an 83-yard touchdown on us on their first offensive play. So I don't know. I feel like Nebraska has done that to 3 or 4 teams in Frost's tenure. They've just demoralized them like that. So it feels like if they can just win this game, they have the potential to do that to a number of teams. Like if you told me right now, listen, they're going to beat Michigan by 3, and then they're going to go beat Minnesota by 30. I wouldn't doubt it because I think that the positive energy they could get off a win Saturday could be so contagious to this season that almost anything could happen.
It's such an interesting game because to say that Nebraska will win it is to say that will be their best win by far under Scott Frost.
Oh yeah,
I mean by far.
No question.
You're talking what are the contenders really? Last week against a bad Northwestern team, they played very well. 2018 Michigan State, 2018 Minnesota. I mean that's kind of the
Minnesota game. that year.
That's what you're talking about.
Minnesota was pretty good that year.
They finished one game over 500.
Yeah.
So that would be a massive win. And if they don't win the game, then it's probably more of the same. Hey, we're close. Didn't quite finish it off.
No question.
Have to shore this
Minnesota
thing
then
up
becomes,
over here.
again, must win.
Right.
And you're going into Minnesota going, this team's beaten Nebraska twice in a row. They're going to have to go up there, not screw up, all that.
Right.
But if they win this game, you don't look at, and they don't look at Minnesota that way.
Doesn't
they
it-
look at Minnesota like, we're going to go up there and kick their ass.
Doesn't it depend a little bit if they lose to Michigan? Doesn't it depend a little bit how they lose to Michigan? Like if it's one of those
My
where
read is,
No?
yeah, a little bit, Jimmy, but if they lose, then I think that how they lose will be so much similar to how it's been around here than if they win. Does that make sense?
yes,
If they lose by 3, it's just like what they did to Oklahoma and Michigan State.
it would be different though if they lose by 3 and it's not because of a disastrous special teams mistake or something like that.
Yeah.
Right. Like if Michigan kicks a field goal as the time expires, that's
So
different.
here's what I would say. When you're talking about taking the emotion of this moment and putting it in a vacuum and denuding all of the parameter, like all of the history and all of the weight and the freight and all that stuff from it, yes. In a vacuum, it will say the game score of a 3-point loss to Michigan was 103.4. It won't, if they win, ugly. I don't care how they win.
Oh, sure.
If they win ugly, like let's say Michigan sucks, which probably won't happen, but let's say that happens. The galvanization that can come from winning, I don't know. Like I've been around the program long enough to sense that that would be the match.
100% believe that no matter how
But yeah,
they win,
you don't want to lose by 35.
Yeah, it can be a springboard. It can be a springboard, but I don't think it's automatically.
A 3-point loss helps the narrative going forward of like, hey, we're close.
Sure.
Give this thing another year. I've said for many times,
Mm-hmm.
this is a 2-year conversation. I still believe that. I still think they're going to win 5 or 6 games this year regardless, and it's going to be a 2-year conversation for Scott. The question becomes if they win on Saturday. 8 wins is not off the table, guys.
No.
It's not.
I mean, think how much the
It isn't.
conversation changed in 2 weeks. From Illinois, of course, and then Ohio, Oklahoma, Michigan State. We're talking about Northwestern as an absolute must-win. You lose that game, the wheels start to come off a little bit, and then you're
Still
having a
felt
much
like
different
we were right about that.
conversation.
We were right
No,
about that, by the
we
way,
were.
especially now seeing what
I'm saying
Northwestern
that's,
was.
that's the ride that this team is on
Yeah.
this year. Is 2 weeks ago it was a much different conversation. If they beat Michigan, you're talking about momentum. You're not talking about hot seat,
Right.
which is pretty remarkable. When you
So
think about
let me ask you a question, and then we'll get to the midseason thing.
it. Yeah.
I was thinking about this week. Nebraska's 3-3, and they play Michigan, Michigan, Minnesota, Purdue, Ohio State, Wisconsin, Iowa. 3 top 10 teams in there.
Mm-hmm.
And then Wisconsin, which is this boogeyman over Nebraska. I mean, they are. They haven't lost a game against Nebraska since 2012. They're a boogeyman.
Mm-hmm.
Beating Wisconsin would be a big psychological thing.
Yep.
Would you rather be Nebraska at this moment, knowing that you're going to face those 4 teams, plus Minnesota, who they hate? Minnesota's the team they dislike the most, plus Purdue. Or would you rather be Wake Forest? Wake Forest is 5-0. You have virtually no one knows who Wake Forest has beaten. No one cares who Wake Forest has beaten. And this week, Wake Forest is playing Syracuse, who's not any good. So they're probably going to be 6-0. And they're going to clinch a bowl game. Who would you rather be at this moment?
So you're talking like Nebraska 2016.
That's right.
essentially. I would rather.
Although
be,
they had beaten Oregon in 2016, and Wake Forest has
They
not
had
beaten
won.
any team like Oregon.
Sure, but that undefeated record felt like a house of cards.
It
in a lot
did.
of senses, kind of like Wake
Who would you
Forest.
rather be?
I thought you were gonna. It sounded like you were gonna
And
start to
some of
answer.
it
I
is
got
that
it.
it's Wake Forest. Some of it is that it's in the ACC,
Yeah.
and they're ranked. They're 24th. If Nebraska were 5-0, they'd be like 9th. But Wake Forest is ranked.
Mm-hmm.
Dave Clawson's, hey, great. It's good. Who would you rather be?
I mean, Nebraska's always going to have more excitement around the program if there's even the faintest heartbeat than what I saw Wake Forest had like Chris Paul and Ish Smith on the sidelines a couple of weeks ago. That's kind of fun, but even if Wake Forest, how many games in a row does Wake Forest have to win to match the energy at Memorial
All
this
of them
weekend?
this year.
Yeah, probably, right? So
All of them.
it's
They have to go to
probably
the Orange Bowl like
probably
they did in
still
06.
Nebraska is who I'd prefer to be.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's just
That's what's challenging about it, isn't it?
I mean, think about what
Because
we were
Nebraska's
talking
staring
about.
down the barrel of 5-7. They could finish 5-7 this year. Wake Forest is going to go 8-4 or 9-3, and yet I think most of us would agree you want to have to do what Nebraska has to do right now. You want to be in games that matter, and Saturday night matters, and I don't know when Wake Forest is playing Syracuse, and I don't care.
Well, and the other thing I think, and I thought about this before the season, I think it's still true, is Nebraska can get better, and it won't necessarily reflect clearly in the record because of the schedule.
Right.
So I think Nebraska has gotten better. And again, if Nebraska from 2017 or 2018 or 2019 played this Oklahoma or Michigan State team, in my opinion, they would have gotten blown out.
Yeah.
Because they didn't know who they were.
Right.
They didn't have continuity. At a lot of positions, they didn't have the talent. But
Right.
they have that now. And so people are disappointed. I mean, I totally get that. You're a fan. You want them to win the game. But to be within a possession late does mark progress for this team. And so to have a chance to get over the hump. I mean, okay, think about, so it's number 9 Michigan coming in.
Yeah.
2017, Nebraska hosted the number 9 team in the nation 2 weeks in a row.
Yep.
Wisconsin and Ohio State. And the mood for those games was dread for the most part.
Yep.
It was, oh crap, how do we not get
No question.
embarrassed?
No question.
And how, contrast that with the mood now, which is, this could be a springboard.
Yep.
Hey, we're here physically. Hey, we figured things out. Hey, we're 3-3, but man, we're right on the cusp. And players, and Scott said that this week, was they felt more confident after those losses the last 2 weeks than they did earlier in the season. So, yeah, it feels like, I just think it's true. The 3-3 record is so deceiving because Nebraska's figuring something out. They just haven't had that big breakthrough win. They haven't had a big win like that, like Saturday could be since Michigan State 2016 at night under the lights. It's a major opportunity.
At this point, I would say that the one mistake that Nebraska's made this year, and it encapsulates an entire game, and I think it's a risk next year too, is choosing to play that game in Ireland with Illinois, and creating a week 0 scenario where you're playing a fresh, healthy team that is nowhere near as good as Nebraska right now. And if they had kept the game on November 13th, do you know how bad Nebraska would beat Illinois? By 40. I'm not kidding. But they played them in the moment that they played them, and as a result, they faced a fresh, healthy team that Nebraska knew nothing about. And that's frustrating. That's the one game on this schedule where you're like, Nebraska is really, well, they're 3-3. You cannot take the game back, but they're really 3-2. And it's one of those deals where you're just going to have to see kind of where it goes from here. But I would say that, again, you want to be in this spot that Nebraska's in on Saturday. You want that. Mm-hmm. And Nebraska has the benefit of being in a league that is good enough where you get opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to prove yourself. And there's value in having those opportunities because eventually the thinking goes, Nebraska's going to make good on one of them. And when they do, they're finally going to get this thing going in the right direction.
Can I make the case for Wake Forest real quick, though?
Oh, sure.
Work-life balance. You don't have to. No one's expecting you. No one's expecting you to sleep in your office at Wake Forest, especially if you're undefeated, because clearly what you're doing is working. The burden, you're unburdened by expectations. And if at Wake Forest, one of these seasons buys you 2-3 more.
Absolutely.
So, I think there's something to be said for just winning and being in that spot in the first place, and potentially playing in a conference championship game.
Yeah, the chances are slim because they're on Clemson's side.
Right.
But they'd have to beat Clemson.
You never know.
They could do. This is
Clemson
if
could
they're-
lose
if this
another.
is the year.
Clemson could lose to someone else too.
This
By
is
the way,
the year it could happen. Yes, very possible.
Well, let's talk some midseason awards. It's kind of a natural point to maybe assess what Nebraska's done to this point. Looking ahead a little bit too. 6 games in, 6 to go. We're going to go kind of offensive MVP, defensive MVP, and then a couple other ones. Who's your offensive MVP not named Adrian Martinez?
I would go, probably Samori Toure. Samori Toure brought stability to the wide receiver group when there were a lot of injuries hitting that group. It's clear that he's a guy that Martinez developed chemistry with early. When you see him talk to the press at the podium, you can tell he's very mature. He's got everything that he needs to have together. He's quickly asserted himself as a leader, maybe not a vocal leader, but a leader by example in that room, someone that coaches can point to and say, this guy does it the right way. You should do this as well. Young player X, of which we have many who could stand to build some good habits, right? And I don't know who the other candidates are. I guess it's been tough because there's been a lot of bodies moving in and out, and because I would say that a guy like Austin Allen would be someone who I would point to in a more normal year, but somewhere where he would get points is probably in the run game. Run game has not been great for reasons beyond his control. So I'm going Samori Toure.
I think as a player on the field, that's probably a good answer. I'm going to go with Matt Sichterman, who I don't think has had great games every week, but I think he has helped immensely in that offensive line room. And Juergens too. Juergens has been the best of the 5 linemen. My sense is that Matt Sichterman is a guy who can put his arm around any one of these young guys and try to help them along in a way that has made this get a little bit better, And so Greg Austin today said that he was the glue, again, not as a player, but I think as a presence in the locker room. I think he's been helpful. Playing-wise, this will sound kind of odd, but I think Travis Vokalek has been very helpful since he got back. Now, he's only played 3 games, but their offense looks different. I mean, they're able to do things with him on the field that they aren't able to do when he's not. So Martinez clearly wins it, and then I've appreciated what Sichterman said the week after the Michigan State game. You noticed he went up there and spoke, and no one else did, just him.
On the O-line, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then I think Vokalek's been a big addition.
I would say Vokalek too, because he came back when Nebraska started to figure things out for that Oklahoma game, Michigan State. Sam, you've broken down before the value of having him and Allen on the field at the same time, the way that they can exploit defenses with that. Statistically, he doesn't necessarily jump out, but everyone says he's their best blocker. You can see how he can set edges for them. I think it's probably because, to your point, Jimmy, they've rotated running backs seemingly every week.
They just shuffled the offensive line.
Receivers have had injuries. They've been coming in and out. Touré's statistically been the most impressive, but I think Vokalek does allow that offense to elongate possessions maybe more in a way that it hasn't been able to do before that. Defensive MVP. Who do you got?
I would say Deontay Williams, because as a single player, I don't know if anyone else has been able to help the entire defense as much as Deontay Williams. And what I mean is his ability to just play out there in center field and take away some of those deep passes. And Dismuke should deserve some credit for this too, but I think Williams is a little bit better at it. That just has that does so much for Nebraska's defense as a whole. It allows it makes it takes things away from offenses. It was the reason that Oklahoma had to grind its way down the field instead of kind of chunking its way down the field like it's used to doing against so many different teams. And it's why the front seven can be more focused on the run game, because they know that even if they step in, maybe 1 or 2 steps too many on a play action fake, they got someone back there who can track down a long ball like that. So I'll go Deontay Williams.
I can go next.
Go.
I'm going to go, and this might be a little odd too, or seem odd. I think Damian Daniels is right up there. When you start looking statistically at what the linebackers are doing, the inside linebackers, the outside linebackers are all thriving. And I think a big part of that has been what Daniels has done in that nose spot sort of in the middle, where he's getting that pressure in, where he's driving, running back lanes to those linebackers, and they're cleaning up. I mean, those guys, that's how a 3-4 is supposed to be. Those front line defenders are going to drive that to the linebackers, and as Sam wrote about last week, those linebackers, they've been able to finish those tackles. They've been able to make plays in a lot of different ways. And I think for Daniels, what's been so notable this year too is forever he's been a big body who can give you, 2 or 3 plays, 4 plays in a row, and he has to come out and get a breath. You start looking at some of the snap totals that he's logging in games. I mean, he's in there for 30, 40 plays. He's in there very consistently. He's become a presence. I think he's played himself into an NFL draft pick next year. And so he's been a big part of what they've done defensively.
Dolman, I think, is valuable, the most valuable because of what he can do within the structure of a defense. It's rare that you have a guy that can play the run, especially the outside run as well as he does, and also drop in coverage. He hasn't really given up much this year. He was the drop guy on Fordham's touchdown, and he slipped, but that play was also let go by a safety. So he hasn't given up much this year. He's been an effective pass rusher. The 2 times that he went, he got sacks. And Dolman, now as an important, healthy, consistent addition, Luke Reimer's been really, really good. Mm-hmm. He is a game changer at the inside linebacker position. He doesn't play it the way that they've had other guys play it. He's fast and he's violent, and he flies around. He's a little undersized, granted, noted, but you talk about the NFL. Luke's going to find a place in the NFL on special teams at least. And I think he might be fast enough to play even a different position. I think Luke's been really, really good for Nebraska, but Dolman would be my MVP.
What is your most noteworthy development of the first half as it pertains to Nebraska?
I mean, he's got to be Martinez becoming the player he's become, right? I mean, that's what the offense. He's been single-handedly propping up the offense at times this year, and he's been a will they, won't they kind of person for the last 3 years, and that's incredibly frustrating for an offense and a fan base. And to see him make the strides he's made, it's simple. The quarterback is the most important player in this sport, probably all sports, and he's made significant strides. He is. I wrote earlier this week, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the Big Ten, which
it's a good story.
This year is a lower bar to clear than most,
sure,
but
it
is still true. He's playing really well.
Yeah, he's not Justin Fields, but yeah.
I think one that I'll put out that's been kind of an underrated development has been they've just been able to stay healthy. There's been very little drama in that way. Casey Rogers has missed time at defensive line. Vokalek's missed the first couple of games. Thomas Fidoni's working his way back. He might get a chance to play some games this year. But for the most part, that defense has been undisturbed. There've been a little injury, issues at receiver. But for the most part, they've been able to build continuity. And you start looking around the league at some of the news that comes out every week. Player X out for the season, player Y, done for a month, whatever.
Knock on this table,
yeah,
right?
knock on all the wood. And I talked to some coaches about it today. And
Gabe Urban's out.
But there's not that guy that Nebraska's missing. That's like,
yet.
If only that guy. Well, sure, I understand, and I understand that there's a superstitious element to this conversation.
Yeah.
But the coaches said it today. Look, there's some of it's luck, some of it's how you prepare, some of it's being older and knowing how to take care of yourself in a game. Before practice, after practice, all that stuff. And so all these things, the little things that have gone against Nebraska in recent years have included health. And this year, to this point, that has not been the case.
Yeah, inside linebacker is a place to watch there because, Henrich and Reimer both struggled with that before this year, and they've been warriors.
Yep.
I'm going to go, I thought both of yours were really good. I'm going to mention the receivers. I think they've become better perimeter blockers, and I think there is trust that is now there from Martinez towards some of the guys that I think may or may not have had trust. Xavier Betts is very close to being very good. He's obviously broken a few big plays. He had the 83-yard run, the big 54-yard pass, or at Oklahoma I think it was 54 yards. Drew a pass interference penalty against Northwestern. Was overthrown multiple times on post routes. Should have had a touchdown on Saturday. Yep. Receiving touchdown. Xavier Betts is very close. Omar Manning has become a solid contributor, a legitimately good blocker. Catches some footballs. He's not necessarily the number one guy every time. Samori Toure is a good player, like Jimmy said. And then Falk is consistent. He's not bad. Martin is back. I'd say the receivers. They've done a pretty good job, and they've had to deal with some injury issues. So I think that's been positive. I think Lubick has shaped them into a fundamentally sound group.
So we're halfway through. We've talked to a lot of players after the games, after practices, whatever. Give me 2 players that would go on your all-quote team right now.
All right, I screenshotted a quote from, I think it was one of my first weeks here. So my first person that I'm putting on the all-quote team is Garrett Nelson for, I think it was his first availability of fall camp, and we were asking him about how the tooth that he lost against Penn State last year, and he said, if it happens again, I think it's kind of destiny at that point. What was that guy from the Steelers, Jack Lambert? I'm not as tough as him yet. Maybe I need to lose a couple more teeth. That's an auto add to the all-quote team. And then Greg Austin, every week, has a hound of reporters around him, and I appreciate him both because he is a very good speaker. He adds a little bit of spice. He's not just coach speak. He adds spice to what he's saying.
Right.
But he also talks long enough where if you need to sneak over to another station, I don't know, people don't know the availabilities are set up where basically 3 stations going at once, 3 different people talking at once. You can circle back to Greg if you need to. So I appreciate.
While we steal it. Yeah, you steal away.
Yeah,
that's good.
I appreciate him, and this is a media driven award, so I'm going to give him props for that.
Okay.
Intangibles.
I'll give one that has long been on the team, and then kind of a new one for me. The veteran would be Austin Allen. I think he's been one of the best quotes on the team for a long time.
Excellent.
When things don't go well, he comes out and talks, and he speaks honestly and from the heart. And when things, he's always insightful. He doesn't kind of fall back into cliches. And now he's in his 5th year in the program, so he has a lot of perspective and context.
Cachet.
To add to it too, yeah, no doubt. So I always appreciate hearing from Austin. I think he just tells it like it is. The guy that I was surprised at how good of a quote he was, that I didn't know until this year, was William Pristup, the punter.
Yeah.
He is really an interesting dude.
Yeah.
I mean, he showed up in jeans and an Oakley t-shirt one week before the Michigan State game in the press box. He's not afraid to.
I think he did hoodie and slides this week.
Okay,
something like that.
I'm sad that I missed him.
Man's versatile.
He, that was the week he was playing his former team, and he's like, I'm excited to see some friends. I'm excited to kick some butt. So when the punter is talking trash and kind of not in his place or what you would think would be his place in the context of a football team, I appreciate that. I appreciated his honesty. Give me all the William Pristup.
It is unfortunate what transpired after that, but
yeah, details.
We still
but in the all quote team, he's
for
on
sure.
there.
Unfortunate transpiration. Okay, I mean, look, at the end of the day, you have to give a lot of respect to Adrian Martinez, who has had to do this so many times with the media. He endures bad questions. He endures probing questions. He endures questions about injuries, which Scott Frost has sort of made it so these guys are really uncomfortable talking about any injury.
Right.
And that's okay. That's the way Frost wants it. But I mean, I respect what Martinez does, and he's gotten a lot better over the last couple years of being the quarterback. In other words, knowing how to talk about teammates in a way that is illuminating and or helpful, and gets the ball rolling a little bit with somebody else. Like Adrian is a quote that is often used by a reporter than to ask a question to Scott or to Lubick So Martinez doesn't necessarily always give you these drop quotes, but he's pretty honest, and he's a good guy. Like Adrian's a genuinely good person, and it's not an act. It's just kind of how he is, and I appreciate that about him. The other one, and he hasn't played much this year, is Casey Rogers. I mean, Rogers is an outstanding quote. He talked for about 7 minutes yesterday, and it's just good. I mean, he's going to be a coach one day. His dad is the head lacrosse coach at Syracuse, and Casey's going to be a coach. He talks like one. And Jimmy, you haven't had a chance really to experience Casey, but he's really sharp and also blunt. He's kind of a Northeast guy. So among the coaches that I appreciate, Austin is certainly there. I really think that Tony Tuiotti's doing a hell of a job as a coach, and he's also good in media interviews.
Yeah, really good.
Tony's very specific. He does a good job of, when you talk about a position, he usually remembers all of the guys. And so in the spring, he'll tell you everybody, and he'll give you a little bit on everyone. Chenander has assembled what I think is one of the best defensive staffs in the Big Ten. They fit really well together. I think Chenander and Dawson and Tuioti fit really, really well together. Obviously, Rude is in that bunch. And then I think Travis Fisher has the freedom to kind of run his group the way he does. And then Chenander does a good job of working with him, too. And so that staff, which is largely continuous, I mean, they've had a lot of continuity there, is really solid. I think they're going to have a hard time keeping it together for many more years, maybe not even after this year, because I think somebody's going to come after one of these guys and give him a coordinator job. I don't think Fisher's far from that. And honestly, Tuioti, they're going to have to pay some money, I think, to keep him long term, because I think he's not only a defensive coordinator candidate, but he's a head coaching candidate. I think Tuioti is a really impressive guy. It may help that his son is a junior.
Yeah, he has another year at Southeast.
Because his son has another year at Southeast, and I think they like Lincoln, so maybe rooting down for a couple of years benefits Nebraska, but Tuioti's a major asset to this program. I think he's been a really, really good hire.
Yeah, those are all really good thoughts. Last one on this, and then we can go to hoops. Bold prediction for the rest of the season for Nebraska.
I think they beat Michigan. That's my bold prediction. I think Michigan is extremely vanilla offensively, and they do a lot of interesting stuff within their run game, but they just haven't been in a position where they need Cade McNamara to make a play. And Chenander talked about it today. They want to see. Nebraska wants to see what it looks like when Cade McNamara, has to throw the ball on 3rd and 7, or he's down 7 in the second half. I think if Nebraska can get a lead in this game, it's going to get real interesting. I think they're going to win. That's my bold prediction.
Go ahead, Evan.
I have two kind of minor ones. I suppose this one's bold-ish. I think Nebraska will make a bowl game this year. I think they'll finally break through and do that. If they beat Michigan this weekend, you look at the rest of the schedule, Minnesota, Purdue, both seem, pretty beatable. Wisconsin, we don't, kind of is what it is. That seems almost more psychological than anything else for Nebraska. And then Ohio State and Iowa, if Nebraska's hung with the teams that it has to this point, you figure those should at least be competitive. But I think maybe a little bit more of a specific prediction. I think the defense finishes in the top 15 in points allowed. They're 13th right now. Again, you look at some of the offenses that they face the rest of the way. Minnesota and Purdue aren't moving it much. Wisconsin is a mess. And, Ohio State's figuring some things out. Iowa doesn't necessarily scare you unless its defense gets involved in some of those scoring situations. So, to me, and, we knew Nebraska's defense would be good, but to be top 15 in the country scoring good, you absolutely would have taken that before the season. I think that's something they can do.
I'm going to make a very bold and specific prediction pursuant to your bowl thing. Nebraska's going to Vegas.
Go on.
They're going to play in the Las Vegas Bowl. They're going to go 7-5. That means they're going to win 4 from here. They're going to play in Las Vegas, and they're going to play a Pac-12 team. And you know who they're going to play in the Pac-12?
Arizona State.
Now they're going to play USC.
Ooh.
In Vegas, with Dante Williams as the
that would be amazing
as the interim head coach. They will have already hired their new head coach. And their new head coach will be James Franklin.
Ooh.
Wow.
And James Franklin will be on the sidelines for the Las Vegas Bowl in a USC gear, with Nebraska playing USC in the Las Vegas Bowl. I told you to be bold.
That is bold.
I don't know if that's going to happen.
Is this in Nebraska?
Damn, would that be great?
That'd be cool.
That would be amazing.
That'd be cool.
You're really rolling the dice here.
Vegas, I think it's Vegas on. Let me give you.
Is this even still a Nebraska prediction?
Yeah.
We're really deep into this one.
Vegas, December 30th.
Oh my goodness.
Woo!
That'd be fun.
December 30th. It's a late game, so our deadlines will be shot to hell. But Vegas on December 30th, playing USC in that dome.
Am I allowed to get excited about this? Would I go?
Evan and Jimmy
Okay.
They'd have to stay for
doing
New Year's Eve.
blackjack.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, Jimmy. There's basketball, Jimmy.
Yeah,
There's
you
basketball,
gotta-
Jimmy.
That's true.
You got hoops.
That's true.
Where's your beat, Jimmy?
That's true.
I don't think it's going to be in Vegas.
It's true.
There's basketball to cover.
Is
Las
there? Yeah, I'll have
Vegas.
to check
I'm
that
trying to
schedule.
think.
I'm not
Las
sure.
schedule right
Vegas,
now.
December 30th, Nebraska, USC. James Franklin standing on the sidelines in USC gear while Dante Williams leads the team one last time against Nebraska and Scott Frost.
I
Do
like
you
that.
love that?
I like that.
Now that's a
I'm
prediction.
irrationally, I'm
that's-
irrationally excited. and
Oh,
they're 3
yeah, I
and
could
3.
just, yeah. We even got Evan up.
Yeah, that would be amazing. All right, well, we can't continue on this. Or
No,
my blood
it's just
pressure's
gonna, it's
shoot
just,
through the
yeah,
roof.
it's just gonna go off the chain.
Let's move over to
Wow.
hoops.
Your Tuesday just got a lot better, didn't it?
Wow.
We got a couple hoops experts in the room.
We
Men and women are gearing up.
Jimmy is. Oh,
You
okay,
covered
women.
the team,
Yeah, sure,
you covered
women.
the team
Sure.
last year, and you just wrote about the
Yeah,
women.
I can talk
so
about the
you're
women.
good.
Yeah, that's good.
But and we talked a little bit about this, Jimmy. Maybe the way to frame the discussion with hoops to start, you've seen sort of the buzz, the national buzz from what the team has been, some of the players and personnel that are here. You also don't have sort of the whatever you want to call it, background or baggage of having watched Nebraska basketball before. You can kind of see what you've seen from some of these scrimmages and opening night festivities. So, like, where do you come down kind of in this battle between, hey, this is the buzz, this is what people think they can be, and what Nebraska has right now and what it will be?
Okay, so first let's review. We're using the word buzz. What does that mean? First of all, the CBS's John Rothstein has been on Twitter. He's been on his keyboard. He was the MC
Yeah.
of Nebraska's
Yeah.
scrimmage on Friday night.
Yeah.
He's a national guy. He's speaks with Nebraska assistants. He's clearly drinking a little bit of the Kool-Aid, and there's Kool-Aid. I'll sip a little bit of that too. There's a lot to like there.
Right.
But where the buzz conversation starts is, I think this week in Indianapolis at Media Day, where I will be. I think in the past, I don't know this, but I would assume that in the past, when Nebraska goes up there, it's time for maybe some people to get coffee. Maybe not when Tim Miles is here, but in years past.
Sure.
I think this year people are going to be in their chairs. And I think Alonzo Verge is a guy who has some hype around his name.
Who's
He's
going to Big Ten Media?
Alonzo Verge and Trey McGowan's.
Alonzo Verge.
Yeah.
He's never played a game for Nebraska.
That
Tells
adds to it, right? So
Tells you a lot about how good he is and what role he'll play.
yeah. And I mean,
Who
he's
should we
also,
take the Big Ten Media Days? Why don't we take the guy that's never played a game for us?
It also, I mean, he's been around the block.
Sure.
He is academically a senior.
I'm on the Verge train.
Yeah,
Let's be
academically
clear.
he's a senior. He's going to be a leader on their team. He's going to have the ball a lot, so it makes sense. But he's a guy that comes with a lot of excitement because he scored 14 points per game at a Power 5 school last year in Arizona State. Trey McGowan's obviously, even though Bryce isn't there, Trey's there to probably talk a lot
Trey's a
about
leader.
Bryce.
Yeah.
And Trey is a leader. So there's just a lot of juice. As far as how it stacks up to what the actual product is, I think that there's, again, plenty of reason to be excited. This team's going to be fun. They're going to shoot a lot of threes. I think they'll probably make a decent amount of threes. They're going to be offensively fun to watch. Fred's style is very aesthetically pleasing. Defense, I have no idea. Even in the scrimmage today, limited sample size, a lot of 3-on-2 stuff. We'll see. It's very early in the camp, so it's a big fat question mark. I just think it's strange for a program that, with Nebraska's history, it's funny you talked about my lack of background in it, a team that has never won a tournament game, a team that has won 14 games over the last 2 seasons combined, has this much buzz to the point where I've heard that some people are picking them to finish high as 7th in the Big Ten, which I don't think is crazy, but it's a very unique situation for a program that has been this mediocre to whatever word you want to say is worse than mediocre, to now have a lot of college basketball buzz that you don't typically associate with this kind of program. The recruits that they have, all the talent that's being infused together, that's stuff that happens at more traditional powers. So
Right.
I think it's really interesting to chew on.
Well, I think there's a definite chance for them to make a jump. I remember talking to John Beilein late last year, right around the time of the Big Ten tournament, And he said, we talked about Nebraska specifically, a team he knows well because he watched them all year as an analyst. And he said, I think they can make a jump to, he's like, the next step for Fred and his group is to get to the 7, 8, 9 level of the Big Ten. And he said, from there, you can see the NCAA tournament. He's like, you're more likely in the NIT if you're an 8 or 9. You're probably in the NCAA if you're 7. He said, but you can see it from there, and that's the next step for them to take. When you look at the numbers prior to this season, that feels daunting because the numbers aren't pretty. But when you think about what other teams have lost, Iowa's not going to be the same program. They lost Luka Garza. They're not going to be the same. Wisconsin's not going to be the same, a few other teams too. And you look at what Nebraska returns and what they've gained. I think you can make that stretch. The line that I often use, I've used so many times with Evan in our podcast, is there's a line in The Social Network, the movie, that I like. And it's when the Mark Zuckerberg character says to the twins, if your clients had invented Facebook, they would have invented Facebook. Meaning, when Nebraska does it, they'll have done it. And until then, they haven't. And we often, that means football, that means basketball, that means everything but volleyball because they've done it. But they'll do it when they've done it. And they have to do it before you can actually say it's been done. Talent is talent on paper. They've got to be better than that. The talent has to be on the court and it has to get along. And here's the key, that last piece. It has to get along. It can't just be super talented guys on different pages. Are they on the same page? That's the question.
They sound like they're on the same page.
Well, you watched a little bit today.
The practices, they look like they're not just out there playing pickup. They're running stuff. They're together. They are organized. They're on, again, super duper early in the process, but I think they're on the right track.
You have a position preview, really good stuff. I don't know if you read it, Evan, but he sent it in yesterday. Really interesting breakdown of the guards, which to me is very interesting because that group is going to be all very competitive. When you get to the bigs, it's going to be, well, this guy's going to redshirt and the other guys are going to play. But with the guards, at the outset of camp, we feel maybe pretty good about Verge and McKewon's, right? Because they're going. Outside of that, who's your number 2? Who's your number Who's the second backup?
Kobe Webster. Oh, the second backup, that fourth guard spot is shrug. It's either Corn McPherson or Keisei Tominaga, probably, I'm guessing.
And where's Wilcher?
Wilcher, I would classify as more of a wing. He'll probably end up playing the 2 spot in some of these lineups. So maybe he ends up being the 2 guy. I'm getting messed up because of the way I'm divvying up the preview.
Put Wilcher. I think you put Wilcher.
I didn't have him as a guard. Okay. No, he's not. He's not with the guards. That's why my brain's getting messed up. He's probably more likely than anyone the 4th guard. But the battle between Tominaga and McPherson for minutes is interesting if there is minutes to be had there.
Based on what you said, Tominaga's going to play. They didn't bring him.
That's the thing, though. That's the thing, though. So we have Verge and Trey definitely going to play. Both definitely going to start.
Sure.
Definitely going to play a lot of minutes.
Yeah.
Wilcher definitely going to play. Definitely going to play some decent chunk of those bench minutes. Kobe Webster, leader on the team, has all this institutional knowledge. Can also shoot. It would be strange for them to play Tominaga over him. But if the kid keeps shooting like he's shooting, I don't know. He really can shoot from anywhere, and today I saw he was shooting over a lot of the guys on the team. He's not bothered by a hand in his face. So he is the most interesting piece of the guard rotation in that I just don't know where to put him or how to slot him into the rotation.
Let me give you an example. Early in the season, their schedule, winnable games.
For sure.
A lot of them.
Yep.
They're going to win some basketball games early in the year. Western Illinois, I don't know. There's a lot of other teams in there. Tree State, I don't know. Tominaga's going to score. In those games, when they're up 17 and he comes in and he fills it up, and his score sheet's going to look something like about 12 games into the season, he's going to be averaging 8.7 points a game and shooting 47% from 3. The question then becomes, okay, so what's this guy going to do in Big Ten? It's always going to come down to, once you get in the league, who are your not 8? How many is he going to play?
more in the beginning, as most
Well,
coaches
sure.
do. Historically, he leans on 8 or 9.
Yeah, which is
and
bigger.
in one season at Iowa State, really 7.
Yeah.
So
Was that his best team?
he likes to shore up. It was one of them. Yeah, he likes to shore up the rotation. But yeah, once you get into Big Ten play, that's where I really am wondering about Tuamnaga. Physically, he's about 6'2", 175. So he's going to be undersized in a lot of matchups, and that's where CJ really has such a huge edge. He's about 221 pounds. Yeah, he's a Big Ten body
Go out
for
there
sure,
crack
and
some linebacker
and
on
he can
Saturday.
shoot. He can shoot.
Are the guards like? Is this situation like Nebraska running backs, where it's like you have a lot of them and you need to kind of find the hot hand, or is it actually like
There's a
is this
hierarchy.
big embarrassment
There's
of
a-
riches
there's
and you need to
a-
find something?
I don't know if there's an embarrassment of riches. There's a hierarchy here. They all do very different things. Verge is going to be sort of top of the pyramid, running most of the offense. McGowan's will do some of that secondarily, but be more of a defensive guy. They got a lot of firepower offensively out of that group because of Tuamnaga, because of Wilch. They got shooters back
Yeah.
there. The question for the guards for me more is defense. Verge is a slight guy. They all talk about his defense. He competes, and he's quick and all that stuff, but he's 164 pounds or something like that. They have a couple of guys like that, and Verge is going to play a lot by virtue of having the ball in his hands a lot and what he can do for them offensively, but I wonder what they're going to look like on defense with the backcourt
Game's
stuff.
changed a little bit in the sense, though, that because it's more pace and space really throughout college basketball, you don't have the 6'3", 217
Yeah, I'm
pound
not-
point guard who backs down.
Yeah,
Alonzo
I'm not
Verge.
necessarily worried
You know what
about
I'm
that.
saying?
Yeah, but it's
like
just
15 years ago. That's Cookie Miller.
Sure.
That's a huge issue because it's like that guy's going to go down the lane like a big freight train, and they're not going to call a charge, and you can't guard him.
Yeah.
Now it feels like there's a lot more freedom to get the charge, and teams don't have those giant guards. They just don't. Wilcher's an exception.
he's a bit of a throwback in that regard.
Yeah.
But I would say it's still just easier to drive past someone if you're a lot stronger than them.
Sure.
So that still is a concern for me. I think that the guards are. Another interesting part of that rotation is that a lot of the guys, well, particularly the top guy, Verge, came from somewhere else. He's still kind of. I mean, it's clear that they trust him enough to run things. So he's
And to take him to Indy.
and to take him to Indy. So I'm sure he's doing well with learning all the concepts that they want to have run. But it is interesting to me that a new face would be the head of the operation, and there are, 3 new guys into this mix
Yeah.
that have to be worked in still.
Nebraska fans are used to it. I
Yeah.
mean, there's been 1 year, I think, in the
Well,
last
college basketball
5 or
fans in general are getting
Yeah.
more and more used to this stuff.
where it hasn't been a brand new guy. Like they had the year where Palmer and Copeland came back, but outside of that, it's been a new sort of group, new lead every year. You're going to go to Big Ten Media Days. We'll talk about
Indeed.
Bryce next week.
You
Okay.
want to touch on women's hoops briefly? Or?
Sure. Nebraska should make the NCAA tournament, and that's a natural, understandable goal. They'll have the deepest and most complete backcourt they've had in Amy Williams' tenure. They should be able to score by the bushel. They should shoot 36 to 38% from 3 as a team. Defensively is where they've got to find it. They have to be able to stop the opponent, and I'm not just talking Caitlin Clark at Iowa. I'm talking, or Indiana. I'm talking they got to stop Minnesota, and they have to stop Illinois. Defense was a problem for them last year. Might be nice if they beat Creighton once. They haven't done it yet in a long time. So there's some scenarios in there. They have to be able to stop. They have to be able to play defense on the perimeter. They have to stop 3-point shooters. And I think this is probably the first team where I would say this is the way that Amy Williams envisions playing basketball. Doesn't mean they got to win. They have to win. But I think if you look at the way the team is composed, it's got that Australian flavor which she had at South Dakota. That she built it there with Australian players. They're more perimeter oriented. Their defense is going to be way more aggressive out on the floor. Kate Kane's gone. Kate Kane was great. One of my favorite people was Kate. The defense may get better with her gone. Not because she wasn't great, but because the things that they did as a result of her being on the floor were just different than what they're going to try to do. So I think they're going to be really aggressive defensively. I think they're going to score a lot of points, and I think there's going to be games when you wonder if they can slow somebody down. But if you're going to ask me for a win total right now, I'd say 18 or 19, and they're about a set an 8 to 10 seed in the NCAA.
What does this season mean for Amy Williams? I mean, she's been around now for a while. Like, what's the intensity level? What can this mean for what she's doing, trying to build at Nebraska?
Well, I think it's important in that way. I mean, this is a year where I think you really want to see them either be the number one seed in the NIT or make the NCAA. I think you need that. They have the players to do that. Sam Hybe's back. Isabel Bourne's back. All their top scorers are back. Again, they'll be able to shoot the three like nobody's business. Jazz Shelley, who's an Oregon transfers, maybe the best guard, short of Sam, that they've had since, I don't even know, since Rachel Terrio. Jazz is going to be really good. So I think it's important for her to show that when she has a team that is among the best in the league, and by the best I mean the sixth best in the league, that they play to it. They had that talent 2 years ago when they had Leah and Ashton, but then Taylor Kissinger got hurt, and then things kind of fell apart. Like, they were 11-1 early. You might remember that, and then they fell apart in Big Ten play because the players didn't like one another, and the leadership at the top wasn't good enough. And that was a team that should have won 20. They won 17. They didn't make and then they canceled the rest of the season. So, yeah, I think there's a lot more for this team to go get. 18, 19, 20 wins, NCAA tournament, 8 to 10 seed. That's about where they're at, I'd say.
Okay.
And if they do that, then it's all cool in the game. We're moving on. She's getting an extension. It's moving forward. If it's 16, 17, and you're in the NIT, I think it's another year. I think if it's a losing season, you're going to look at that with a jeweler's eye and go, what isn't working here? Everybody knows how I love covering Amy. So she's been great, and I think they're probably going to get it done. I really believe that. We'll see.
Who's going to get it done in picks this week?
Not me.
You were bold last week.
Yeah, that sucked.
And it didn't all pan out.
Luck did not favor you.
Bold as love. I went 5-8. You guys went 11-2 each.
So sometimes it's hard for me to discern, Sam, like how much you actually believe in your picks and how much you just kind of like to shake things up and be bold and go in
It's a shake.
directions.
I told you last week that the ones I had the most concerns about, and the Iowa one was a mistake. I should have realized in Maryland, they're a joke. I came close on Boston College. I came close on UCLA. I came close on. I really did think Mississippi was going to play Alabama way better than they did.
Yeah.
So I came
I
close
think
on.
that game is probably a lot different if Mississippi doesn't get stopped on fourth down.
Yeah.
Early in that game.
Yep. And to be clear, I appreciate the way Lane Kiffin approaches it. We're not going to win the game if we don't score points, and we're not going to win if we punt. So the game got out of control early, and the game gets extended points-wise. And that's the way you have to play Alabama. You're not going to beat them punting it around. Right. You might stay closer and, pat yourself on the back for losing 35-17, but what difference does it make? Stanford, Arizona State. This is Friday.
This is interesting. Stanford is so spunky. Going Arizona State.
Yep, Arizona State.
Stanford.
So it begins.
Here we go.
ASU's doesn't run the ball real well, and if you can't run the ball real well, Stanford can handle you. Bottom line. I think Arizona State and USC are pretty close. We'll see. Arkansas, Ole Miss.
Ole Miss.
Arkansas favored in this game, by the way.
Yeah, I'll go Ole Miss.
I'm going Arkansas. I think there's an Alabama hangover for Ole Miss.
Ole Miss for me. They played that epic 7 overtime game a couple of years, like 15 years ago. Georgia, Auburn. Georgia for everyone?
It's gotta be, yeah. Okay. I do enjoy me some Bo Nix, though.
Yeah.
Talk about YOLO balls.
He's going to have a hard game.
Yeah.
But, Georgia's a hell of a football team. Wisconsin, Illinois.
Good Lord. It better be Wisconsin.
Okay.
I mean, Illinois has gotten them in the not-so-distant past.
Yeah, 2019.
I'm still going Wisconsin, though.
So am I. And I mean, I just feel like Wisconsin's got a good game in them, and they've been playing teams that are pretty darn good. So I think they're going to
Yeah, they'll stay on
This could be
schedule.
a
Coming out
Nebraska
party
Northwestern
against-
sort of weekend for Wisconsin.
I kind of agree. Boise at BYU.
BYU's that's a home field game.
It is home field. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tend to agree.
If it were at Boise, I'd take Boise.
They have a quality win or two. They're at home. BYU.
BYU. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see the arguments made for and against Cincinnati and for and against BYU if they both keep winning. I mean, BYU's got a good win against Arizona State and a good win against Utah.
Utah too.
So,
Yeah.
Alabama, A&M. Everybody ready to go Alabama?
Yeah.
Bama.
Jimbo Fisher, Chris Eddy's favorite coach. UConn, UMass. The battle of
That's
the
fantastic.
only defeated teams. One's 0-6, one's 0-5.
I'll go UConn. They've shown some life in recent weeks. I know they're playing
they
bandy
play
last week,
Vanderbilt?
but
Yeah.
What is this? Who's your favorite UConn basketball player, Jimmy?
probably Kemba Walker.
Cool. I like that. Who's your favorite UConn basketball player?
Richard Hamilton? Did he play at UConn?
Rip, yeah.
I thought you might say Ray Allen.
No. Lord, no. As a Spurs fan,
Destroyer of dreams.
never ever. I was as angry as I've ever been as a sports fan. I'll go Rip.
Amika Okafor was my favorite. Okay, who'd you pick for the game?
I didn't. I'm gonna go UMass. UConn's so bad.
The Minutemen.
So bad.
I'll pick UConn. My favorite UMass player, and it's pretty much everybody's favorite UMass player, is Marcus Camby. Right? He's the only famous one.
I can't think of another option there.
Bruiser Flint. He was their coach. I always kind of liked him. I kind of liked UMass.
Anyone with the name Bruiser. I mean, Bruiser Flint, man, that's a working man's
Weren't you
name.
rooting for them a little bit? Well, you were real young, but I was kind of rooting for UMass in the mid '90s. They were kind of. I like Camby. Utah at USC.
Utah.
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 This is at USC, incident.
Does USC need this one to get to Vegas to play Nebraska?
Well, yeah, I suppose.
Well, then I better go USC.
Okay. I'm going to take USC. Notre Dame at Virginia Tech.
Notre
Lane
Dame.
Stadium. Did you go to Lane Stadium?
Nope,
No.
never been.
Notre Dame. I got a friend who's going to be at this game.
Cool.
Vatech. It's at home, I believe,
It
for
is.
them.
It is.
Tough place to play. Jimmy?
Notre Dame.
I'm going to take Virginia Tech too. We're down to the last three. The red.
I'm looking at your notebook of it. What kind of order do we go in? Seems like you
Various order.
start from the bottom and then.
It's
Yeah,
still
just
all
kind of
over
go
the
all
place.
over the place. Oklahoma, Texas, the Red River rivalry in Dallas at the Cotton Bowl.
Give me Texas. Playing better football.
Wow.
Texas.
It's a bold call, Jimmy. You didn't even hesitate.
Think they're playing better.
No, I'm impressed. You actually knew what you wanted to say there. You weren't trying to play cool. I like it.
I was going Texas as well, actually. I mean, we've seen Oklahoma up close. Maybe Texas has got something figured out. This game always is a toss-up. We've watched this game from, I think, sports bars on the road in 2 of the
Yeah.
last 3 years.
Yeah.
Texas. One of the better fight songs out there.
Oklahoma.
Penn State, Iowa, yeah?
Penn State, Iowa.
That'll be a fun game.
Where's this game? Iowa?
Kinnick.
Kinnick.
Is that a night game? What time is that game?
Ooh,
I don't
3.
remember. 3? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's too bad.
I'm going Penn State. I can't take Spencer Petras in this
They
spot.
tend to
I
have
just can't.
success in Iowa City.
They do.
I still think Iowa's rolling. Like if this game had happened 2 or 3 weeks ago, maybe Penn State. But I just think Iowa's got some of that momentum going right now. Give me the Hawkeyes.
Yeah, I'm going to go Iowa too. They do have something. They have something in Kinnick. They beat Michigan a couple years ago in 2016 when they were undefeated. They took Penn State right to the wire. A great Penn State team with Saquon Barkley. They beat Penn State back in 2006 on a field goal, and they took Ohio State to the woodshed in 2017,
Yeah,
as people remember.
right.
I'm going to go Iowa. They have an energy at home that's hard to beat. Last one, Michigan, Nebraska.
I already picked it. It's Nebraska.
Yeah, I mean, I think Nebraska's going to win it. That's what I
boy.
said a couple weeks ago. Was that little 3-game stretch? with
Sam,
Michigan
do not
State,
go 3 for 3.
Northwestern, and Michigan. I felt like they were going to win 2 of those 3. it's a bold pick considering it would be far and away Nebraska's best win under Frost. I feel like they figured something out. I think they pull out a close one.
Nebraska. Michigan
boy.
gets an early lead. They're up 10-0 early, and Nebraska finds a way to claw back. They leverage the Memorial Stadium crowd, and they win it 21-17.
Apologies from all of us ahead of time.
All right. Oh, apologies from Jimmy.
There you have it. Saturday night under the lights again. Hope you guys enjoy it. Should be a heck of an atmosphere. Last week was a ton of fun for everyone involved. This week could be too. Maybe this is the start of a new conversation. We'll be back to talk about it next week. Thanks for listening.